Scaramucci, the White House Director of Communications for all of 11 days before he was fired in a media firestorm. But the mooch has stayed loyal to his former boss. Why? Anthony Scaramucci, welcome to Hard Talk.
It's good to be back.
Do you believe that Donald Trump is a president that the American people can be proud of?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're in a polarized country, so certainly 40 to 60% of the people are not going to like their president at any given time. I think that's been true, unfortunately, for the last 30 years. But yeah, I think that if you look at the diagnostics of what's gone on in the last year in terms of the economic growth, the wage increases, the fact that he's tackling or at least hailing our adversaries and trying to build strong alliances with our allies, I think yes. I think there's a lot to be proud of there.
Well, we'll talk economy, we'll talk foreign policy, but I want to begin with the style and tone of this presidency. Arguably the most important job in the world. Do you believe that he is handling it in the right way?
Well, you have to remember, to go back to the campaign, the president, the candidate then was in front of 17 other potential candidates, and the constant remark...
I don't want you to go back to the campaign.
No, but I think it's important.
What happens?
No, but I think it's important. He would have never... Stephen, he would have never been president. This whole notion of acting presidential, tweeting presidential versus not acting presidential, he would have never been president if he didn't take his combative style into that campaign, knock out the 17 competitors, knock out Secretary Clinton, and then arrive in the White House. And
but
so
he's now in the White House, and he now is the president. You call it combative style, but if we are going to be specific, we talk about the kind of behavior which leads him in a meeting with congressional leaders on immigration to use a word that I'm not even going to use, but so derogatory to so many people, so disgusting that it has caused a furore around the world.
Have you ever used that word before?
I've never been president of the United States.
Okay, but have you used the word before?
It's not a word I use, no. But even if I had, what has that got to do with it?
But here's the sanctimony with the whole thing for me, okay? I grew up in a neighborhood. We used tough language in the neighborhood that I grew up in. He grew up in a neighborhood in Queens. He used tough language. He's used tough language his entire career. And so now he's in a private setting. We're in this sort of crazy world now of social media and constant leaking, and everybody's now their own media expert, and their cell phone is effectively a recording studio. And so now the president can't have a private conversation. He's speaking to the Australian Prime Minister. There's 3 people in the room. It gets leaked to the Washington Post. So you're telling me that President Obama never used a curse word. Rahm Emanuel never used a curse word.
You're missing my point. It's not the fact that it's a curse word. It's the context in which it was used. He was basically saying, why do we have...
I'm not missing the point. I'm addressing the sanctimony and the righteousness, okay? Because what we're doing now in our society is we're tabulating every syllable and we're tabulating what people say. We've now decided that we want a portal into everybody's personal life and a portal into everybody's private, discretionary conversations, and then when they say something that isn't discreet, we set our hairs on fire, we run around the world with our hairs on fire.
Let us be clear then. Hang on,
let me stop you. Talk like that. I mean, you've got viewers that talk like that.
Let me stop you for a second. What you seem to be saying is that a comment which in context was seen to be racist, not just by his Democratic opponents, but by Republicans, some of them in that room as well, by the United Nations, by the African nations that he appeared to be referring to, around the world, the feeling was this was racism. And you're telling me you can't call out racism when it comes from the President of the United States because it's sanctimonious?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not racism, okay, number one. First of all, I don't know if he said it or he didn't because I wasn't in the room. There's mixed reports on whether or not he said it. Senator Cotton didn't hear it. Senator Durbin said that he heard it. let's just litigate and stipulate that he said it for the point of this conversation. The point is, he's not a racist. Okay, I've known the guy for 25 years. People in our community here in New York know that he's not a racist.
Let's look at some of Mr. Trump's words and actions in the course of his presidency. He characterized Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals. He pardoned Joe Arpaio, the Arizona sheriff who was convicted in a federal court of using, in an unacceptable fashion, racial profiling. He responded to a neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville by referring to some fine people. And then when there was violence afterwards, he said there was blame on many sides. He retweeted an anti-Muslim propaganda video from an extreme far-right British organization. This is a pattern.
And last week he signed declarations to widen the ceremony of the Martin Luther King birthday, which we're celebrating today in the United States. He's got guys like Pastor Darrell Scott and Pastor Mark Burns on his side. The NFL football player Jim Brown said that he's going to be the quarterback of urban renewal in the United States. And he campaigned in the urban areas and said, give me a chance. And so what's happened now, which no one wants to report about, is that African-American unemployment in the United States is at a 35-year low.
When African-Americans, like the former chief of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele, say, quote, Trump has captured the racist underbelly of American life and given voice to it, does that not give you pause?
Well, again, there's a question on the table about his style. There's 40 to 60% of the American people, Michael Steele could be one of them, doesn't like his style. Now we got to talk about substance, and you have to look at the substance, and as you said, actions over words. The guy does not act as a racist, and the policies that he's put in place are not racist. And like I said, African unemployment is at an all-time low, 35-year low, so he's doing something right in that community. So listen, you don't like his style, most people in the American media don't like his style, and I understand that, but the style that he has is what got him to the American presidency. Now listen, I could be in the Oval Office with him. I was only there for 11 days, but they were pretty eventful 11 days for me, okay, and I could tell you that you could talk to him about his tweeting, and he would have a joke regularly. He would say, well, did that sound presidential? And listen, I'm a pretty upfront guy, and I'm a New Yorker like him. I said, no, it doesn't sound presidential to me. And he would say, yeah, but if it sounded presidential, I wouldn't be president.
So let's talk a little bit, as you've introduced the melodrama that came with your hiring and then pretty rapid firing as Director of Communications.
It's like a telenovela.
It certainly had the drama and the soap opera feel to it.
Yeah, no question.
You've got a bit of distance from it now. You can look back on it. It seems to me that what happened with you embodies everything that Michael Wolff talks about in the book Fire and Fury, which is about a White House that was utterly dysfunctional, chaotic, and failing in its basic tasks of governance.
Okay, so first of all, I mean, that's a totally ridiculous book. I mean, I read the book. I would say there was some truth in it, but why would he let truth get in the way of a good story?
Well, I understand you don't like it because he regards you as perhaps the most preposterous hire in the annals of the West Wing.
I read what he wrote about me. God bless him. Okay, the truth of the matter is, I was in the West Wing and he wasn't in the West Wing. Okay, this guy is a terrible journalist. I give him credit that he wrote a salacious, fictionalized book that he characterized as nonfiction, and he got himself to the top of the bestseller list. So he made himself some money. But let me tell you what he did, Stephen. He hurt you, Stephen. He hurt you, Stephen.
He hurt me.
Yeah, because you're a credible, honest, objective journalist, and he's in your community.
You went down in flames, having come into the office, and indeed you told a BBC colleague of mine that, you know, you were sick of the backstabbing. You said, where I come from, I'm a front stabber, and yet implying that you were going to be straight, you were not going to indulge in the leaks, which you saw coming from Priebus and Bannon and all these people around you, and yet within days you were making a late-night phone call to a New Yorker reporter, and you were saying the most extraordinary things about your colleagues in the White House,
let me stop
about
you right
Reince
there.
Priebus.
You think I didn't say those things to those people directly? Hold on a second. I know
that, that would be front stabbing, but the backstabbing is then to go to a reporter.
No, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I said every single thing that I said to that reporter to Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon directly. And so when I said that I was a front stabber, I went right after those guys.
You told Steve Bannon, did you? As you told Ryan Lizzer of the New Yorker, you told Steve Bannon, and I can't use the phrase, but it involves a contortion and it involves a sex act.
I used the words, but they were off the record in a private conversation.
Exactly. You were backstabbing off the record.
I wasn't backstabbing. I was front stabbing. You don't think I told those guys to their faces exactly how I felt? There was some...
You were the director of communications who was supposed to be putting a new, efficient face on the White House.
I think it was pretty efficient. Okay, the president hired me to help him remove several of the biggest leakers inside of the administration. Let's go back to that time. You say we have the benefit of time. Let's go back to that time. The internecine warfare that was taking place in the months of April, May, June, and the mid part of July were absolutely ridiculous, unfair to the president. They were leaking every piece of information. The guy couldn't have a private phone conversation without it being leaked.
But the first thing...
You're trying to accuse me of doing something behind their back. I didn't do anything behind their back. I met with them 9:30 in the morning in the Chief of Staff's office and told them exactly how I felt about them.
And what happened was Reince Priebus, the Chief of Staff, got fired.
Don't accuse me of backstabbing them when I'm hitting them right in the face and tell them exactly how I feel.
You were involved in the firing of Reince Priebus, and then when he was replaced with General John Kelly, the very first thing he did, his #1 priority when he walked into the West Wing, was to fire you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What a humiliating episode in your life.
You know, it was humiliating in some ways, but understandable in others. You have to remember, I'm an American business person. I'm not a politician. I went in there, the president gave me a job. I handled it the way a CEO would and the way an entrepreneur would. I didn't handle it like a deft political operative. And so the president gave me an opportunity to get rid of some of the leakers. I went and did that. General Kelly and I have very, very different personalities. He's more of a military person. I'm more of an entrepreneurial iconoclast. It wasn't going to work. And so he fired me, and he fired me quickly. And I give the guy a lot of credit.
The thing is, you say, since then, the dysfunctionality...
This is the interesting thing about you, okay? You call it humiliating. I call it a reality-based decision that somebody made as they were trying to reorganize their staff. And I took it like a man.
People around the president in the administration, the Secretary of State, the Finance Secretary, former senior staffers, they all say this guy is fundamentally not suited, not fit to be president of the United States.
And you're saying that you're sourcing that outside of the Michael Wolff book?
Yeah.
Because I know each one of those people individually. I don't believe that they've said that about the president. So maybe they have, but I don't believe it. And by the way, you know, people do say things in conversation, and they could be colloquial or they could be joking, but here's what happens now. There's an open mic and a hot mic everywhere in our society. So every syllable's measured, and every syllable becomes tattoo ink in your forearm. I think it's a little bit ridiculous that we're doing that to each other at this point.
Do you think, in all honesty, now that you're well away from the White House, do you think the president has the intellect, the character, the temperament to be Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States?
He obviously does. I mean, you got.
He obviously does?
Obviously, look at the economic, national security, and you pick the responsibilities that the president has. Let's go over the dashboard. Let's look at the
You've already made the point about the state of the economy. Let me just take one specific.
What about the national security situation?
Well, let me take one specific.
The North Koreans are negotiating with the South Koreans. For 25 years, we let that go. The former administration called it strategic patience. The president of the United States said, hey, no more strategic patience. This guy's got the bomb, or he's going to get the bomb. He has the capabilities now to launch a ballistic missile into the continent of the United States. Let's put an end to this stuff. And he's doing that. The North Koreans...
okay, well, stick with Korea.
The North Koreans are negotiating with the South Koreans.
When President Trump tweets out
and Premier Moon
comments
said
like,
that was
my nuclear button is bigger than yours and it works, he refers to the leader of North Korea as Little Rocket Man. You're telling me that this is all part of a well-thought-out strategy, are you?
Let me give you a news flash, and let me put your viewers at ease and perhaps the global community at ease. when he's doing that, okay, somebody like Don Jr. or myself, we look at that, we laugh. Okay, we get the joke that's embedded inside of that. We get the sarcasm that's laced inside of it. We don't microanalyze it like liberal journalists do and then strike a match to it. We look at it for exactly what it is. When he's saying that his button is bigger than the other guy's button, it's a joke. It's part of his wit. It's part of his personality. And so you may not like it, but he's 71 years old, and he believes, and I also believe, that he used Twitter to jump over the mainstream media to direct message to the people that voted for him.
Interesting.
And he's going to continue to do that.
You use this phrase, the mainstream media. I think it is fair to say Donald Trump continues to fight a war against what he routinely calls the fake news media. Now, you were his director of communications for all of 11 days, but if you were still in the job, would you say to Donald Trump, Mr. President, it is not wise to dismiss the so-called mainstream media as nothing more than peddlers of fake news, and to continue this war?
So let's offer a balanced perspective. Pew Research said during the campaign and into the first year of his presidency, about 74% of the mainstream media is negatively biased towards the president. So that's an objective standard. That's not me saying it. And so that creates a bit of soreness inside the administration. Still, despite that, if I was there, and in the time that I was there, I thought it was absolutely a bad strategy to declare war on the media. In fact, Steve Bannon is the one that declared war on the media. He made that statement early on. He said that they were an opposition party. Let me just finish.
Donald Trump is not a glove puppet. Have you not heard Donald Trump day after day, week after week?
You don't want to let me finish.
I do, but he describes the media as the fake news media.
I think that, unfortunately, until you are a victim of fake news, you don't really totally understand it, okay?
You seem to be suggesting Donald Trump's strategy right now is not working for him. It's a mistake.
I have suggested inside the White House and outside of the White House that the president does not need to declare war on the media. I was only there for 11 days, but one of the first things that I did was I turned the cameras back on and turned the lights back on in the press room. I thought it was very, very important. The way the system was set up is that we have a fourth estate known as the American media, the freedom of press, the First Amendment in the United States, freedom of speech, to hand check people that are in power. The president's very media savvy. He should take a step back from that. He should say, you know what, I can have an adversarial relationship with the media without a war declaration. Okay, the thing that I'm worried about is the good news for the president is he had roughly the same approval rating as Barack Obama at the end of the year. We can dispute the polling, but that's my, hold on, let me finish. I'm going to make the point even better than you would make it, okay? This is the thing that I'm worried about. Barack Obama lost 63 seats in the 2010 midterm congressional elections. And so as someone that's a supporter of the president, someone that is a lifelong Republican, I would be making the case that we have to reinvigorate the party and we have to switch strategies right now, because if his popularity doesn't improve going into those elections, okay, they're going to be tough elections.
You seem to be saying if the Republicans don't find a strategy of distancing themselves from Mr. Trump, they are going to be in big trouble.
I actually think the opposite. I think the candidates that have embraced him have frankly done better. The ones that have distanced themselves from him have frankly done worse. So I'm saying something very different. I'm saying that you've got to start connecting now with the American people on what I'm calling the dashboard of success for the Trump administration and for the Republicans in Congress. If you don't do that, history is up against you. Where if you look at Ronald Reagan, you look at Barack Obama or George W. Bush, they all got, and I'll use an Obama term, they all got shellacked in their midterm elections.
We're almost out of time, so we're going to get shellacked in a minute. You said this recently. You said, I am still an advocate for the president, media surrogate when I need to be, and at some point I'll probably be more involved, but more in a re-election capability than from inside the administration.
Yeah,
are you seriously suggesting that you, with your record, and Donald Trump with his record, can work together and seriously expect the American public to re-elect him in 2020?
He's going to get re-elected. I mean, it'll probably be a landslide re-election. Okay, you know, the way the American political system works, it's almost impossible to defeat a sitting president unless you have a calamitous situation like a depression or some kind of historic rise in unemployment.
You just agreed with me that his standing right now with the American public is at historic lows.
I didn't say historic lows. I said he's roughly at the same approval rating that Barack Obama had.
I'm ask you what universe you're living in. I mean, he may not even complete the first term.
I'm living in the same universe you're living in, and this is why I want to get invited back when he wins. We'll be popping champagne together, you and I, okay? He's going to win re-election because he's got the right policies for the American people. And by the way, before the cameras were rolling, we were talking about Governor Romney, who I supported. Governor Romney was a great candidate for president, but it's almost impossible to beat an incumbent president in a rising economic situation. You can go back to 1880, Stephen. It doesn't happen. So he's going to win re-election.
Extraordinary promoter of the Trump cause. But I'm going to end with this quote.
I'm not a promoter. I'm just talking facts with you. You know.
I'm going to end with this quote from a Republican, Senator Jeff Flake, who has split with Trump. He thinks Trump is very bad for America. He knows he's not going to get renominated for his Senate seat because of his stand.
He can't get reelected.
And this is what he said. He said there are times, because he's basically killed his own career by making a stand, he said there are times when we must risk our careers in favor of principle. And when the next generation asks us, why didn't you do something? And he means do something about Trump. Why didn't you speak up? What are you going to say? And what are you going to say?
What am I going to say?
That I enabled this guy?
Oh, okay, again, you guys don't like his style. Obviously, Senator Flake doesn't like his style. I grew up with people like Donald J. Trump. I am part of that neighborhood environment. I get the difference between the brashness and the style and the capability and the action. And so I predict over the next 3 years, the capability and the process and the action is going to overwhelm people. He's going to Davos, Switzerland this next week. He's embracing the global community. He's at the intersection of globalism, where he wants peace and prosperity for the world, and he has an America First strategy for the American workers. You don't like his style, I get that. You don't like his tweeting, I get that. Senator Flake doesn't like it. But let me tell you something. Let's measure him on substance, and when he wins re-election, you'll invite me back. And we can have an I told you so moment like we did when everybody said that he wasn't going to win in the first place.
Well, come what may, we'll invite you back. Anthony Scaramucci, we have to end.
And I'm talking facts. It's not self-promotion or Trump promotion. Okay, just let's make that clear, too.
Thanks for being on Hard Talk.
God bless.
Thank you.
All right. Tough son of a bitch. Okay, did you see why we call this break balls, BBC break balls?